It is.
Can't hear it.
Time traveler, running faster, warrior is born, battle to be won, past, trauma, future, hurt. I'm a child of the dirt and I'm ready to give birth, planting a dream, panting I breathe, running towards the future with a handful of seeds, stronger than greed, I am stronger than hate. I stand under the shades of trees planted so long ago, a product of ancestral love. I'm here because my elders dancing the sun. They would give it all up for us, and from day one it was practiced like religion to prepare for the ones to come. We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn. We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn. This is insane, living for fame, living for the next quarter, profits and gains. You forgot love, you forgot truth, you forgot how to live for a time beyond you. It's not about you, it's not about you. It's about the song that is traveling through. It travels through time, singers will die, but the song lives on through matrilineal lines. We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn. We are here to give all our love to the ones unborn. Open your eyes, open your heart, draining aquifers before they can recharge. We're not in charge, nature's in charge. Look to the stars, remember who you are. Stay humble or fall, we don't know it all, and we are not exempt from natural law. Live selfishly and the structure will fall, but if we live for those unborn, then the song will go on. So before you take a book off the shelf, take a look inside yourself. Answers come to you at light speed. I'm searching for knowledge that I can't find on a news feed. Knowledge found through intuition, knowledge found through fasting and dancing. This ain't superstition, it's ancestral tradition. So throw me the spear of wisdom, sharpened and sunlit. I'm giving my life to the oneness. I'm a warrior, I'm sun-kissed. I'm armed, but I'm harmless. Protecting cycles of rain and cycles of snow. Fighting for children whose names I will never know. I look up and read the messages written all across the sky. Messages telling us that it's time to evolve or die. It's time to live this life right, so that when our children look back, they look back with pride.
Good afternoon. Welcome today to our Reclaiming Native Psychological Brilliance series. At this time, Debiani, if you don't mind unmuting Holly. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Bernice UP Jordan. I am a citizen of the Fort Peck Sioux Nation. I am a public health program manager for the Tribal Health Support Program Support, United South and Eastern Tribes. Next slide. I'm going to read a couple of disclosures. Audience participation tips. We are building a community. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Select everyone and let your fellow participants know your name, tribal nation affiliation, if applicable, job title, and organization. Everyone will be muted until the audience feedback portion of the hour. During that segment, use the raise my hand icon on Zoom and the host will unmute you to offer your reflection. You will receive a link to the recording and presentation by the end of the week. Next slide. Continuing education information. This activity is jointly provided by United South and Eastern Tribes and Cardia Services. Cardia Services is approved as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the Montana Nurses Association and accredited approver with distinction by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. This activity has been planned and implemented in accordance with the accreditation requirements and policies of the California Medical Association through the joint partnership of Cardia and the United South and Eastern Tribes. Cardia is accredited by the CMA to provide continuing medical education for physicians. Cardia designates this live web-based training for a maximum of 1 AMA PRA Category 1 TM credit. Physicians should claim credit with the extent of their participation in this activity. Next slide. And upon successful completion of this activity, 1 contact hour will be awarded. Successful completion of this continuing education activity includes the following: attending the entire CE activity, completing the online evaluation, and within 2 weeks of the event, submitting an online CE request. Your certificate will be sent via email. If you have any questions about this CE activity, contact Michelle Dowtry at mdowtry@cardiaservices.org or 206-729-4775. Next slide. Disclosures. There are no relevant financial relationships within eligible companies for those involved with this ability to control the content of this activity. Next slide. And this slide. So we wanted to read this land acknowledgement. So you are in Indigenous land. To learn what and acknowledge what tribal nation land you are on and what organization you're standing on, you can go to this https nativeland.ca. This map that you would see does not represent or intend to represent official or legal boundaries of any Indigenous nation. This map is just imperfect as it is, and it's a work in progress. Next slide. So now I'm going to go ahead and introduce Holly Echohawk, who will take it from here. She is our senior behavioral health advisor for the Reclaiming Native Psychological Brilliance. It's all yours, Holly.
Hi there, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. It's good to see you all. I love watching you all come on board here and seeing where you're all from across the country. We're glad that you're with us. And, you know, like we've always said, this Reclaiming series, Reclaiming Native Psychological Brilliance, is a series that we put together for you. It's your time out. It's your special hour. And it's your opportunity to learn new information and maybe give you some new ideas on how to support the healthy behavior and emotional wellness of Native people that you serve. So with that, I get the great pleasure of introducing my friend and my colleague, Dr. Jackie Vorpal. Jackie is going to introduce herself, but you're in for a treat today. The reason that we showed the video that we did at the start is you notice they use the term warrior, and means a lot to all of us and to our tribes. Jackie is a part of a really important group that is supporting Native veterans. She's going to talk about that today. And then next month, we're going to do part 2 of the same conversation. So you're in for a treat. So let me turn it over to Dr. Vorpal, and she will introduce herself and share information with you. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Holly. So that's me. I'm Jackie Vorpal, and I am from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I'm a clinical psychologist. And I'm so excited to be here with you today. I I come every month, so it's such a treat to, see everybody. But I'm going to talk to you guys today about Native Home Base Pilot Program. And the name of my talk is Changing How to Respond to Emotions, because working across Indian country, one thing, next slide, go ahead to next slide. Yeah, that's the best slide right there. Yeah. Because working in Indian country, I have seen the impact of substance use disorders and the impact of opioids on Native communities. And, we're going to focus on veterans today and how many veterans are trying to cope with the traumas that they've experienced using different ways of self-medicating. And so the pilot program that I'm going to share with you today is helping veterans and their support people change how they respond to emotions rather than trying to avoid them. To look at emotions as a visitor that's visiting them. So next slide. And I want to approach this work with honoring our ancestors and our creator and all of our relatives. And with this quote, "The creator has given me the strength to look forward in life, to embrace the beautiful and positive. Now I truly walk in beauty." And I think this really demonstrates the courage and strength that it takes in order to listen to our emotions and sit with them and move through them, because our traumas have really impacted our lives. Next slide. So I'd like to introduce you to the Home Base organization. And so the Home Base organization is a national nonprofit dedicated to healing the invisible wounds of veterans from all eras, service members, military families, and families of the fallen. And it's a world-class direct clinical care service with wellness, education, and research. And Home Base brings veterans to their facility at no cost to them or to their families. And people are eligible for this program regardless of the era of service, their discharge status, or their geographical location. And to date, they have served more than 100,000 veterans and their families. Veterans are so important because they're warriors, like the song said, and they have put their lives on the line for us to have freedom. And we have lost so many veterans, over 100,000 since 2021 to suicide. And it is the mission of Home Base that it's the time to heal our heroes, and it's now. Next slide. So the Home Base team comprises of a lot of people, and Home Base is an organization that has intensive outpatient treatment programs all year long, but it had come to the attention that there was nothing specialized for Native American veterans and their families. And so this pilot project was launched in December, and we're going to have a second program in June, and you guys can refer people. You'll have a flyer to be able to refer people to the program. But this program was really spearheaded by Louis Chow, and he's the Senior Director of Home Base Training Institute and Network Development, and he's the co-chair of Diversity and the Diversity Committee, and Laura Harwald who is the director of the intensive clinical program, and Marcus Denatel, he's the regional associate director, and he's Dene, and he is our outreach specialist in Southwest and tribal relations. But then we have all the individual and group therapists for all the veterans and their support people. We have nutrition, education, nursing, fitness, art therapy, case management. So when people go home, they have follow-up care, meds management for veterans only, and the travel is arranged, activities are arranged while people are there at no cost. So that is the structure of our program. So next slide. So with home base, it was important to develop a treatment protocol that would be helpful for a vast range of different issues that veterans were bringing into treatment. And some people just aren't ready to address their trauma, or this is the first time they've ever engaged in any formal treatment. And so the unified protocol, which we call the UP Strong, was the protocol, the treatment protocol that we decided to use. And so they brought me in as a Native psychologist to help adapt that type of protocol to work with Native American veterans and their families. And the unified protocol, it's a cutting edge cognitive behavioral therapy that can be used to treat many disorders. So many common health concerns like anxiety, depression, and other emotional disorders. It's a transdiagnostic treatment, which means it's meant to help anyone struggling to manage emotions, regardless of their diagnoses. And the unified protocol is an active treatment that teaches patients skills and strategies to manage strong emotions when they are interfering with their daily life. So we felt like this would be a good fit for the veterans and their support people coming in. Next slide. So the unified protocol was developed by Jacqueline Bullis and Claire Robbins, and Rachel Anna Marati, she's an expert trainer. So I worked with all three of them directly in order to modify the UP protocol. And as you can see, that UP treats meant over 35 diagnoses in the DSM. And these are all diagnoses that are characterized managing strong emotions. And it's only one protocol. So it's simple to use, but it's evidence-based. And this can really, we've really seen the progress that people can make in understanding how to manage their emotions. So the goal of this treatment is not to eliminate uncomfortable or adverse emotions, but rather to gain a better understanding of why emotions occur and how they can be helpful. And so UP aims to increase the acceptance of emotions by teaching patients CBT skills to modify their appraisals of emotions and use effective emotion regulation strategies. So the ultimate goal is reducing distress and improving function. Next slide.
And Jackie, before you go on to the next slide, I've had the really wonderful conversations with Dr. Vorpal on this program, and I think about Native people, and I know all of you know of Native veterans, either in your family or in your community, and they come back from their tour of duty, and they have a hard time readjusting back home, and they may have angry outbursts. They may have obviously become depressed, and you can see that. It causes challenges with their family, with their buddies. So they have a lot of distress, and sometimes they don't know where to go for support and help. They sometimes kind of spiral down into, and I'm sure Dr. Vorpal's seen this many times, that they get, sometimes they might get angrier and angrier, more explosive in their own family, and they may start using substances, either alcohol or other kinds of, sometimes pain medication that spins off into other kinds of addiction. So the beauty of this work that Dr. Vorpal is sharing with you is just phenomenal in what they're able to do for free, and to bring veterans into this intensive treatment program, which she's going to continue to tell you about.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, the next slide, please. So I'm sorry, yeah, back up. Yes, so to give you a better idea of the functional model of emotional disorders, because sometimes that can be a little tricky to understand, is that emotional disorders are focusing on functional similarities in the experience and regulation of emotions across diagnoses. So specifically, we are going to focus on 3 areas. So the experience of frequent and intense negative emotions or mood states. So some examples that are on the slide is anxiety, fear, reoccurrent panic attacks, frustration, and anger, like Holly talked about, feelings of resentment, and low or abnormal elevated mood, and irritability. And then next slide. And so the next negative reactions are to emotional states that are specific aspects of emotional states, such as the thoughts or the sensations. So we're really breaking it down to negative judgments of emotions. So it's like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's not really that bad. This means I'm out of control, or this means that I'm weak. And so those negative judgments of emotions on what a person is experiencing is very detrimental. And so the UP is really going to hone in on how people are judging themselves for the emotions that are coming up. And the next one is the adverse reaction to positive emotions. Oh, I'm still on the next slide, last slide. So even feeling hopeful, this might increase their fear of, like, I don't want to feel hopeful because I'm just going to get let down. Or if I relax, that's going to trigger a fear that something bad is going to happen, or I'm going to let someone down. So understanding that, even sometimes when we think of a positive emotion, this can actually, have a downward spiral. And so understanding that can be very helpful for the veteran and for their support person. So next slide. And then efforts to dampen or to escape or avoid negative emotional experiences. And these are examples of procrastination, avoidance, because, we as human beings, we don't want to feel pain. So it makes sense that we would want to avoid feeling pain, even if it's not physical pain, but emotional pain. But as we know, emotional pain can turn into physical pain. And so people might avoid going places, engaging in certain situations, like with their community, being with family. They may avoid memories of, having strong emotions. And so these negative emotions refer to any emotion that an individual experiences as adverse. So some people experience emotions that are traditionally considered positive to be uncomfortable, like joy or pride, because that could lead to something bad happening. Okay, next slide. So let's look at the simple model. Click it again. So we experience a negative emotion, and if we perceive it as unacceptable, then we go to lengths to avoid or escape that emotion. And so that could be that we, don't talk to people. It could be that we're self-medicating. It could be, that we're getting angry or pointing the finger at someone. And then the emotion to avoid is unsuccessful, and that negative emotion comes back. So there may be a short-term gain or relief that a person feels by avoiding it, but it's really a long-term impact that's negative, and that negative emotion comes back, and it usually comes back stronger. And so we are teaching veterans and their support people, to notice these different aspects, and that there are actual things that people can change in order to move through a negative emotion. So next slide. So when a person experiences, click it again, a negative emotion, then that emotion is perceived as acceptable. Like, this is a difficult situation. Of course that memory, is disturbing, but they learn to tolerate the emotion and that's associated with that distress. And as they tolerate that with the strategies and skills that they learn, their mood recovers. So it's in the short term, they're tolerating some discomfort and pain. And long term, their mood recovers, and that negative emotion doesn't get stronger. And so this is the key the key aspects of using the UP protocol. So next slide. So now that I've explained a little bit about what UP is, let's talk about the key components of integrating, indigenous wisdom with this treatment protocol. So the first thing that, I worked with some other Native folks and the UP folks is, we need to be grounded in Native wisdom. And we were looking at the different strategies that were being taught, and the medicine wheel seemed to be a very logical, a very logic way of viewing this. And the programs aspect, looks at at different aspects of the medicine wheel, and bringing in that framework that each of the different skills that are being taught are relevant to the different directions. So the east, the south, the west, and the north. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple of slides. And then the second was the 2-eye seeing approach. And so that's embracing the values of indigenous wisdom and Western perspectives. And so this acknowledges that Native American veterans may have diverse connections to their cultural roots, ranging from, being very deeply embedded in their traditions to navigating urban environments, and the importance of the evidence-based practices that we know work. So it's really blending in the evidence-based practice of the UP and the practice-based evidence of our Native wisdom from our different tribal nations. And then the third component was really bringing the family and community into the forefront. So for home base, this was the first IOP that every family member or support person got all of the treatment that the veteran got. So they were really walking side by side, and then they came together in some talking circles and some different groups in order to practice those skills together. And this was pretty huge step to have enough therapists, to have enough of the services that that could be supported by the veterans and their support people. And then when we talked about the medicine wheel, we talked about having the centering on emotions using the medicine wheel. And so basically what we did is we placed emotions in the center because we all have emotions, and the way we respond to emotions really impacts all parts of our lives. And so this really underscores the importance of recognizing the emotions that are coming up and being able to accept them. So next slide. So I want to share a quote by Joy Harjo. So I release you, my beautiful and terrible fear. I release you. You were my beloved and hated twin, but now I don't know you as myself. And I think this really encapsulates the importance of understanding like our emotions are here and we are one with them, but it depends on how we respond to them. And we can have fear that becomes our hated twin and that companion that is with us all the time. And we need to develop an idea that, hey, this fear is trying to protect me, but in what way? And in what way is this fear holding me back? Is there another way? So next slide. So here is what I was talking about with incorporating the medicine wheel with UP. So our emotions are in the center. And then if we start with the east, that's represented of our mindset, of the new beginning, of the sun rising. And so our emotions have an impact on what we think, and what we think also affects what we feel. So this is one of the first things we're going to work on in the IOP with veterans and their family members. And then we're going to move down to the south, which is our heart and our presence. And that's recognizing an emotion is a visitor, and this visitor can help us determine what information this emotion has to teach us. And so if we can embrace that idea of visitor, then it doesn't seem like a danger. And then we move over to the West, which is transformation and behavior. And it's the emotions influence our behavior. And we can learn to engage in behavior that's consistent with our goals and values. So it's really developing like, what are our goals and our values, and how is our behavior supporting that? And then moving to the north of wisdom and community, and how emotions help us connect and communicate with others, and that these are all important aspects, that they all interrelate with one another. And by understanding this, we can become a healthier self. So next slide. And so this is an example of what our program looked like. Our program looked, so day one, we focused on teaching the skill of understanding emotions. And so that was there were educational sessions, and we talked about how, emotions have different components. And so there was an individual content that people met individually with their therapist, and then there was a group component, and then there was a skills practice component. And as I have it laid out here, you can see the different skills and the names of the different skills that the veterans learned, and also their support people learned. So they learned how to map their emotions, and what were their triggers, how were they responding to it, and how to be present and non-judgmental. And that led us to day 2 of staying rooted with emotion. And that's mindful emotional awareness. So rather than numbing ourselves or drowning our emotions out, we're actually able to face those emotions. And again, it was taught in a group setting. They had individual session, and then they were able to practice it as with their veteran and their support person. And so the model, I think, is very important because the practice with your support person is huge. And what we heard is, I can't wait to take this back to my community. I'm so glad that that we're here together, because he or she would have told me about this, but I really wouldn't have understood what they actually meant. And here they were able to practice and actually be coached right there and then. And then the third day, we looked at flexible thinking, how to have multiple perspectives of a situation. And that thoughts are just thoughts. Some thoughts aren't accurate. And what are these thoughts trying to tell us? And then day 4, we looked at changing unhelpful behaviors. So what is keeping us stuck? Or what behaviors are we engaging in? And what are the small things that we're willing to try? Because trying something different takes courage. And so having that support, that's the group, also with the individual, and also practicing it with your support person, really builds that confidence. And then day 5 is challenging yourself and preparing for returning home. And this incorporates, we have physical sensations and that are scary and that we don't know what to do with. And we talk about those things, that it is mind, body, spirit, and our community. And so we do some exposure kinds of things that help people learn how to tolerate these emotions as they're coming up. Okay, next slide. One thing that we really touched on is humor and how healing humor is to our Native communities. And so this is a great quote. Our humor has always existed next to tragedy and drama. It was a coping mechanism, our humor. It is a way of survival during hard times. And that was one of the big aspects that we wanted to make sure that we included, because people joke around. And I think, Native folks have such great humor. A lot of times it's very dry, but we all seem to get it, no matter what tribal nation we're from. And we had a lot of laughing going on. And I think that was really healing, because I think sometimes as psychologists, we can jump to humor as a coping mechanism that's avoidance. And sure, we need to pay attention to that, but we also need to understand culture. Okay, next slide.
And Jackie, before you go
Yeah.
on, let me just mention everything that you all have done is fabulous, and the thought that you've taken put into developing this protocol for Native veterans. And to remind everybody, this was the first time pilot for a group of Native people. So Native veterans and their support person. And they come together. They didn't know each other in advance necessarily. They're all different ages. They come together. They're in a group setting in a hotel kind of environment with all the support people around them, like Dr. Vorpal. And I love this because it builds on my belief and all of your belief in innate Native intelligence, Native brilliance. We're all brilliant, and veterans are brilliant. Our Native veterans are brilliant. Sometimes we just need information. And the fact that this protocol provides that context of information, it explains what I love the graphic of the cycle of negative feelings and the healthy way that they learn and visually can see in the education they receive. And all of this background that you provide and the practice skills, the practice with their partners, the practice with each other throughout the week is phenomenal. And I think it really builds on the native brilliance. And sometimes we just need information to let our brilliance kick in and change behavior. So I really think this is fabulous. So I just wanted to add that. So please continue.
Thanks, Holly. So another aspect that we incorporated was storytelling. And so we used these books, specifically stories and poems for Northeastern Native tribal families that was already published. And it was from Northeastern tribes. But we use this as a way of demonstrating that through our storytelling, the stories are incorporating all of these strategies that we're talking about, but they're in a story form. And so this demonstrates native brilliance, as Holly's talking about, is that so we talk about the story and what's coming up for us in the story, and then I'm able to say, that's very similar to mapping our emotions. That sounds, and it's like, oh my goodness, yes, it is. So we're creating this language and this bridge because we do need this language in order to get funding. And that data in order to get funding, but we also need to incorporate the indigenous wisdom that's there in our communities. And so we encourage people, they can definitely use these stories, but to use their own stories from their own communities and their own narratives. And then next slide. We also had talking circles, and the talking circles, we had some that were just veterans only talking circles, and then we had talking circles that were support only talking circles, support person only, and then we had support talking circles for them together. And this was very healing. And again, a lot of the strategies and skills that we were talking about all week, they were practicing, they were doing it during the talking circle. And this is so important for us to know as Native people that what we know as Indigenous people works. And we can stand behind it and we can believe it. And so, we bring our ancestors in, which gives us even more support. And, I also provide the language of, we were mapping emotions, we were staying rooted in the present, we're changing unhelpful behaviors. So it doesn't seem so daunting that these skills really start to be part of what is inside of them already, or of what they're trying to reclaim their selves. Many people are wanting to know more about their tribal identities, and this is also can be a starting point to get them back into their communities. Okay, next slide. And we also use movement. And I love this picture. It's just so gorgeous. So we did not use dancing, which that would be a dream for me. But we used different, we did use drumming music. We used different yoga moves that were simple and easy to do on your own that can change your nervous system. That sometimes breathing is powerful, but sometimes we need a little bit of action with the breath. And so we had yoga and movement classes that were indigenously inspired. And again, we had some with veterans only, some with the support person only, and then we had them together so that they could go home and practice together. And you know, those are things that, you know, they could cue each other that, you know, this might be a good movement moment. Okay, next slide. And so the three things that we were really hoping for were to really have emotions, wisdom, and transformation. Those were the three things that we were hoping for at the end of the 5 days. So emotions, our daily lives are deeply connected to our emotions. So we were hoping people could really relate to that. And this, and so that we can see that emotions are valuable messengers that are guiding our actions. So in treatment, the aim is not to eliminate emotions, but to develop a healthier response to them. And then the wisdom of the medicine wheel, representing the 4 directions. This provides a rich framework for emphasizing that emotions are like visitors, offering messages for personal growth, resilience, and connection. And that emotions, that transformation is that emotions, whether fear, sadness, happiness, excitement, these can be overwhelming. And managing them involves breaking them down, breaking the experience down into thoughts, physical sensations, and behaviors. So understanding the cyclical nature of emotions helps transform our relationships and how we deal with our emotional landscape. Next slide. So I'm finished with this portion, but what I want to tell you is we got really positive data from this pilot program. And with that data, the home-based team has reconnected to all of the participants to say, hey, how are you doing a month out? How are you doing 2 months out? You know, what would you like to see, you know, if in another program? And so they did a pre and post test, and then these follow-ups, and also follow-ups with the clinicians and different providers. And so next week, what you guys are going to hear, or next month, I should say, is the home-based team of what their process was, which is unbelievable, and what the statistics came out to be, like what we actually saw the improvements in. And then we're going to do a 2-week program that is going to change a little bit based on the results that we got. And if any of you guys are interested in, there's a flyer that you guys will get probably in the chat that you can refer to the program. It's going to be in June. And if you have any questions for me, you can, and you don't want to ask them now, you can reach out to me, and my email is on this slide. So thank you so much for your time, and I welcome any questions.
That was fantastic. And you know what I'm thinking about is not only does this effort, and I guess I should start by thanking the Boston Red Sox, hence the
Yeah.
name home base, you know, home base.
Right.
And the Massachusetts General Hospital for supporting and recognizing how important it is to take this work that they've done with veterans all over the country free and develop a tribal model. But that said, good thanks to them, and looking forward, stay tuned y'all next month, because you'll get to meet the Boston Red Sox team and the clinical team that's broader, that includes Dr. Vorpal. But I'm just thinking about how much this supports the brilliance of Native people and builds on the brilliance of our Native veterans. But I think it also reflects the courage of Native veterans. Because think of, all of us know we have veterans in our families, in our communities. And if you think about the veterans that you know, male or female, let's not forget the female veterans. Can you imagine the courage it takes for them to get on a plane with a partner with their support person, whoever that is, to address their emotions, to actually travel somewhere with that personal goal, and the courage that it takes for them to do that. One of the things that Dr. Vorpal and I talked about is in this pilot, it's only one pilot so far. I think there were maybe 15 tribal veterans and their support person. Frequently in the Boston Red Sox experience, because they do this all over the country, right? Veterans get to the airport, but they don't get on the plane.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
too scary. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. And
Everyone
got on the plane.
every one of the Native veterans got on the plane, every one of them. And think about the courage that it takes to do that and how proud we are. The other thing to
Yeah.
think about is, can you visualize the veterans that you know in your family, right? Or in your tribe. Can you imagine them in a room doing movement, doing yoga? But it makes sense when they're in that environment, and because they're dissecting what has been raw emotion, and they're learning about the different components. And so in that case, I'm sure they all did the yoga moves, whatever it was. And I think this is just fabulous. And I can't thank you, Dr. Vorpal, for taking the time to share this information with our people that joined us today. And your beautiful slides, they're just really fantastic. So it's been a visual and an intellectual and an emotional and a prideful session. And thank you so much. So let's move on to the next slide. So it's time for audience reflections. And remember, we always, after this, always end with a final video. So stay tuned, stay with us till the end. So I'll turn it over to our good friend, Livia Davis.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, what a powerful presentation. Dr. Vorpal, we do have a couple of questions. One is there a list of criteria to get into the program?
Yes. And so Laura Harward, you can email her and she can send you that list. But yeah, so there is there are criteria, and in the flyer you can email her directly. But the nice thing about this that we heard over and over again from the veterans that came they were so pleased that it did not matter their discharge status, and they did not have to show a tribal card or anything. It was self-identification, and that was just like the emotion and the gratefulness was amazing. So that I will tell you, those two biggies that can exclude people from different treatment programs are not there.
Wonderful. And glad that that information is in the flyer for folks to access if they have questions. Another question in the chat was, were Alaska Native veterans represented at this event?
They were not represented at this event. We only had, I think it was 12 veterans and their families, and the majority of people were from the Southwest. We had a couple from the Northeastern tribes. And I think that's a matter of getting the word out. This is a new program. And so understandably, people are, even if they hear about it, they're like, this sounds too good to be true that I don't have to pay anything, or I don't want to make that trip to Boston, so those are some things that can be difficult. So, word of mouth is very powerful in our Native communities.
Wonderful. And that you did just answer another question, which is, where is the center located? And you said Boston.
Yeah, so Boston, we're bringing people to Boston, but we are working very hard at having this be a mobile, it will be mobile. And so that's in the works, but I don't have any details to share on that. So in the future.
All right, and then one last question. Is it dual diagnosis?
Yeah, so so we're not specifically focusing on alcohol or drugs or the dual part, although it's treated. So we're talking about really what emotions are coming up and how are you responding to them? So are you responding by drinking or using? And so we're going to focus on that specifically. So it is a yes, but it's not a specific, you know, focus on the substance use disorders.
That makes a lot of sense. One last question just came in. I think you answered it earlier, but just to double check, does your program pay for the expenses?
So yeah, so there's a person that arranges all the travel from nuts to bolts, and they're supported all the way through. There's somebody that picks them up at the airport, that transports them to the airport. And there's if the food is not provided by the program, they'll receive gift cards in order to get food. There's also different activities they can participate in over the weekend, to build the community, but also to be able to see the city. And that's no expenses to any of the people coming.
So the
Thank you
airfare
so
paid
much.
for,
Yeah.
excuse me, Lydia.
Airfare, hotel, food,
Good.
entertainment, if it's part of, the programming.
Mhm.
So it's all included. And like I said, there are people that are supporting you all the way up to it, making all of the reservations, answering all of the questions, what documents do I need to carry? Like one of the things that one of the people did not have a driver's license, did not have a passport. So they were able to use their tribal ID. And so that was nice that, those are questions that people answer and are, if they don't know it right away, they'll get back to them. So they have a contact person that they are working with all the way up, to the start and then post as well.
Awesome. Friendly faces all the way.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I'll turn it back to you, Holly.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia. You do such a great job of keeping track of the questions and making sure that we get them answered. So let's see, let's go to the next slide. If you have any, remember that in the chat is the link to the flyer. So you might want to grab that. And if you have any follow-up questions, you can reach out to Bernice Jordan at USET. Deviani is the tech support person, but she has information too. And of course, you can always reach out to me. Well, thank you, Dr. Vorpal, so much for this. And we're looking forward to seeing the clinical team from the Boston Red Sox and Massachusetts General Hospital, the native lead down in New Mexico, and Dr. Vorpal again next month. And they're going to talk more specifically about kind of, what happened during that week with the pilot with the Native veterans. And they'll talk more probably about the upcoming June session. So the next slide. So that's the when I saw this slide, when I reviewed it, my first thought was, what are those socks doing on the, then I was like, oh, red socks. So next, April 23rd, it should be on your calendar already. Same time, same place. And we'll hear part 2 of the conversation about the support from our Native veterans. Next slide. So we have an honor song that we want to use for the closing. So enjoy this. You will enjoy it once it starts playing.
I know a soldier girl, I know a soldier girl. She went to battle across the desert. You know her name, facing danger for our freedom, for our freedom. You know her name. I know a soldier girl, our lady warrior, our lady warrior. You know her name. I know a soldier girl, our lady warrior, you know my name. Wanikeya, Oshima, Kino, you know my name. We love that soldier girl, our sister Lori, our sister Lori, you know my name. We love that soldier girl, our lady warrior, you know my name. Osheyoki Lobo, we all know her name. We love that soldier girl, our lady warrior, we all know her name. We love that soldier girl, our sister Lori, we all know her name. I know a soldier girl, I know a soldier girl. She went to battle across the water, you know her name. I know a soldier girl, I know a soldier girl. She went to battle across the desert, you know her name. Facing danger for our freedom, for our freedom, you know her name. I know a soldier girl, our lady warrior, our lady warrior, you know her name. Wanikeya, Oshiyoki Lobo, you know her name. We love that soldier girl, our lady warrior, you know her name. We love that soldier girl, our lady warrior, you know her name. Oshiyoki Lobo, you know her name. We love that soldier girl, our lady warrior, you know her name. We love that soldier girl, our sister Lori, you know her name.
Are you constantly overwhelmed with your workload? Look at this schedule,
Thank you
perfectly
all again for
organized and
joining us today. Hope you come back next week. In the meantime, you know what we always say, have a brilliant native day. See you all next time.